Hello and welcome to what is week 0 of the FUT Weekly podcast for 𝗵𝗽𝗀𝗀𝗀. And we are doing our how to start 𝗵𝗽𝗀𝗀𝗀 from a content perspective episode, because we've already done the gameplay equivalent of this episode. Do check that out if you haven't done so already. It is a supporter episode. Right, let's get into this. We have with us a host of content experts and FUT legend AirJapes. Hello.
Also, content expert and FUT legend 𝘬𝗫𝗄𝗃, I think is what you meant to say, Ben.
Of course,
happy to be like kind of having content I feel like to talk about, or at least the idea of content for a new game. It's like when content is super maybe exciting because everything changes in a way, or not everything. I mean, Holland's, still Erling and Viking and it's going to be very high rated. We know that, but there's lots of other fun things to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, there's 15,000 new players or whatever, because it's a new cycle. So that's a lot of content. Actually, Racing's reveals are this week, but we're recording earlier in the week, so we probably won't talk about that too much. But let's get into introducing our next two guests. First of all, as you'd expect, we have JoshXLS. Hello.
Yeah, good to be here. We're getting close now. It's crazy how quickly it's kind of snuck up on us, and now we're getting into we're beginning to get some more info. Obviously, the league database was nice to have a quick look through. Transfers have all happened, so we can start building those starter teams that go out the window by day 3. It's going to be a good year, I think.
Indeed. And we have returning to the podcast. Nice to have him back after a little summer break, I guess. Nate, the FUT Accountant. Hello.
Hey, Ben. Thanks for having me on again. Really interesting summer on 𝗵𝗽𝗀𝗀𝗀 transitioning to 25. I feel like a lot of people are really ready for 25, more so ready than previous years, just for the reset and the fun at the beginning of the game always brings.
Yeah, and there's been quite a lot of content that you can unlock in 24 for 25. Would you say it's been a sort of better offering versus what we've had previously and kind of more appealing to players?
Yeah, I remember at the end of FIFA 23 going into 24, I was like, okay, there was an 82 times 10. That was like one of the best packs ever. And then this year there's an 82-10 and an 84-5. And yeah, it's still, I think, worth going for. Even with like minimal effort, you can get a couple really solid packs. So absolutely.
Yeah, and actually there is a article on FUT.gg where you can see all the content that you can unlock for 25 if you want to go and complete those. It might be good to, play a little bit before diving into 25. Right, let's start with some dates. The one thing that we kind of never quite know about until quite late is when the web app is actually going to come. We tend to get this sort of content pitch note that comes out and explains when that is going to happen, or they plan for it to happen. We have the early access release of 𝗵𝗽𝗀𝗀𝗀 on Friday 20th, which is next Friday, not this Friday, but next Friday. When would you, Nate, anticipate, therefore, the web app dropping?
I think the web app's going to be in that Wednesday timeframe right before the 20th, so the 18th. I mean, for all the years past that I can remember, it's been on a Wednesday. They like to drop the newest team of the week, or the first team of the week 1, and the web app. Those kind of go together. In previous years, the web app has been like 5 days before the early access release, but like last year with the start of 𝗵𝗽𝗀𝗀𝗀, it was really short. And I think it's going to be pretty short this year again too. But that's a date people really think is right and confirmed, but it's never really confirmed. So it could be something different, but it's probably looking like it's going to be that.
Yeah, then for those who don't know, right, the companion app tends to release sort of the day after, right? It's not normally the same day. But if you have, am I right in thinking, because I've never done this before, but if you have a mobile device, you can still access the web app, but through your browser. Yeah, okay, cool. So anyone without a computer or laptop or whatever can still go onto the web app. So that's probably worth mentioning. And then after that, as I mentioned, we'll have the early access via Ultimate Edition on the Friday. And we'll also have early access via EA Play. There's 10 hours available there. And then we get into the following week, and full release is on the 27th. Are there any bits of information in terms of dates that you'd like to fill in, Josh? Is there anything important to kind of note over the next week or two?
So I think the only thing in terms of dates really, until we get on the game on that Wednesday, there's always those kind of rogue copies that go around that people are able to get on with the actual physical copy of the game. And then, when it comes to Friday and the game being released, those on Xbox set their store to New Zealand and, can get on a little bit earlier than everybody else. But really, kind of the first rewards we tend to get are squad battles rewards. They come on a Sunday morning. And so there's always that initial kind of drive to try and get all of your squad battles games done to get the best rewards, because they're actually valuable. You get so many coins and tradable packs that it can be a real big boost early on. But the other thing to remember is that you get the 10 hours trial as part of EA Play of the game on that Friday too. And so, if you've not pre-ordered to get the early access, then you have those 10 hours. And I think every year there's always a how to spend those 10 hours. What's the best way to do it? And essentially, if you want to play a game, do that on the trial, but don't do anything other than just playing a game. Even setting your team up, setting your tactics, you got to try and do that all off the game so that you're not using up those 10 hours. Because actually, 10 hours of gameplay over a week is still quite a lot of time spent in an actual match. So the other thing we've got to think about is rush as well. When will kind of rush rewards be, the first rush objective, all those kinds of questions that we just don't really know right now, but will be something to look out for when we get the content pitch notes that will probably lay out, what the new structure is going to be. We're going to have new rivals rewards. What are they going to look like? That's going to be up until the following Thursday. Full release is on the Friday. So, there is a lot of kind of moving parts at the beginning of a game. I think the other thing to remember is there probably will be no champs until the second weekend.
If not the third sometimes, right?
If not the third weekend. Yeah, exactly. So, there's going to be some time to build your team up, and everyone's just kind of getting used to the game at the beginning. So I often think people can kind of focus a bit too heavily on getting the best team possible as early as possible, whereas actually getting used to playing the game is probably going to be more beneficial long term. And yeah, there's always those kind of early investments, and can you get so many coins to buy that first Ronaldo or Messi that goes on the market in years gone by? Obviously, this year it'll be 𝘵𝘃 and Haaland and icons, but yeah, there's lots of moving parts.
I just deeply feel the need before we go on, because there's a lot of going to be great advice for how best to do it. Not doing it perfect is also totally fine. Don't do not make it not fun because you feel so much pressure to do it right. It's not worth it. You have plenty of opportunities over the course of the year to get where you need to go. Mm-hmm. Does it help to have a good start? Sure. Is it necessary? Debatable. That's all.
Yeah, and it's funny actually. I was looking back at notes from last cycle for this episode, and I had written in there, Nate, you should make your point that you made last cycle about starting the game. And actually, I think 𝗲𝘱s has pretty much made that point, which was, even as someone who's very, focused on getting the most out of the game from a sort of value perspective, that's what a lot of your content is built around. I think you agree that, you're not really going to fall behind in the first week or so.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we saw how the early game last year in FC24 worked. You can create a pretty good evolution player within the first couple of weeks that might stay in your team, and be comparable to some of the cards that people are starting to get through opening more packs or doing more SBCs than what maybe you're doing, but spending more time on the game. But you can still be competitive without, having to do every single little thing correctly in the right order and get it all timed correctly. So yeah, absolutely to that. The fun aspect is what we all look forward to in this beginning part of the game. So if you're stressed about how to do it the best way instead of having fun too, it's not going to make your experiences as good.
Yeah, and actually talking about squad battles rewards being the first reward, obviously, I know, 𝗲𝘱s, you don't massively enjoy squad battles, but you do think, as you mentioned on the gameplay version of this episode, that doing squad battles early on is good. How much squad battles do you anticipate yourself playing before those Sunday rewards? Do you actually think you'd kind of grind it, properly, if you like, really max out the number of games, or what do you anticipate?
So let's give the classic Japes caveat of an answer. Like, if it's fun, then maybe I'll play it. If it's not fun, I'm probably not going to play it. So I'll play like at least 2 games, probably, just so I feel good about finishing. But like, I would rather just play humans more often than not. Like like, I don't know what Rush is going to look like, but I feel like I can probably also sort out my ability to finish and do some different things in Rush. Maybe not with like the same frequency, but like you get a lot of chances in Rush. You do get a lot of chances, and you get to try some things. So I don't know how I'll be using that. Although I also don't see myself putting like necessarily any dollar bills against it this year. Like, I'm not feeling that pull like I felt in previous years to do that. So maybe I'll feel more compelled to do it. But I definitely feel, and I don't know, maybe I'm like aging, but I feel like I'm going into this cycle very much with a mentality of like, I'll play when I can play, and I'm going to just play whatever feels fun. Like, whatever feels fun. And if squad battles doesn't feel fun because it's against the AI and the AI is not good this year, then I'm not going to play it. If the AI feels like a human player, then maybe I'll play it.
Yeah, I want to chime in on Rush for a quick second, just because that's actually one of the pre-order benefits during the first couple of days of early access is doubled rush points when you're playing. And again, we're still kind of in the dark in terms of how all the rewards and stuff is going to work. It feels like Rush isn't going to have its own weekly rewards, kind of like squad battles or rivals. Like, it's going to be different and maybe interact with the season a bit more, just based off of the pitch notes they've already posted and the screenshots that were in there. So who knows? We got to learn more about it. But having double points, like you think of double XP and other video games, like that could be really useful depending on what rewards you can either work towards or actually get in the early stage too. So not sure if they'll be tradable or not, and the squad battle rewards would be, but that's adding another little twist to the early access time.
It also seems like there's quite a lot of goals that are scored in Rush in quite short games. It's only 7 minutes, but from people that have played it, it's fairly high scoring. And so, if in terms of getting those objectives done quicker, those like 500 goals and 500 assists and stuff, instead of sitting in friendlies to try and bang those out, you can actually play Rush, get the double points, actually use some players, start learning and figuring a few new things out, and like have fun whilst also working towards them, as long as it all counts, which it should do. But yeah, like just on the how the rewards in Rush work, I would presume it's like an objective rather than necessarily built into Rush itself, because I think we'd have seen screenshots of like a totalizer within the Rush game mode. I'd presume it's just like a new tab on the objectives thing. I think it'll probably only be a weekly thing. It'll be like a weekly objective, in the same way that we have weekly objectives now. You get a player objective that's only there for a week. It'll be like a special weekly event in Rush. It might be you have to use silver players, and there'll be a total number of points, like a maximum number of points to claim all of those rewards. And then once it's done, like, you don't earn any, there's no other objective to complete kind of thing. And so you're then just playing for fun, unless there's another event on that also has points. So yeah, I think it won't be something I think you can grind to constantly get rewards, but especially with that double XP, getting an early boost and playing what is quite fun new game mode, I definitely think Rush will be somewhere a lot of people will go fairly early.
I think part of the reason they're pushing it is, one, it's a new game mode, and also they probably know that it's a good way to learn the game in like a low stakes way and get comfortable with it. So people don't go into, I mean, there's the risk here of getting paired with some like headless chickens, and that could end up being not so fun for new players to the game. But for new players to the game, being a headless chicken, running around, getting a feel for it, and then you're like, all right, maybe I'll go, do this or that beyond that. I think they're, there's a couple reasons that they're going to give us that double to begin with.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think if you are looking to maximize your rewards across all modes, then just keep an eye out for when those objectives are going to expire, I guess, if that's how they do it. That's probably the thing to look out for. Right, what else do we have to talk about on, the scheduling of rewards and things like that? I guess Rivals, probably the next opportunity to gain rewards, assuming the rewards stay on Thursday, the Thursday after the 20th, if you like, just the day before, I guess, full release comes. There will be a Rivals rewards day. And I guess it could be interesting how this works, because we will have what is, I guess, a more tiered system straight away, because we don't have everyone going into the same division anymore. The placement is based on how high you got up the divisions in FC24. I'm trying to think if this changes things at all. I don't know whether anyone has any thoughts on whether this will make things different.
I don't think it really changes anything. I think the biggest difference between how you approach Rivals rewards this year to last year is you don't approach them. They will just be what they will be. Yes. Like last year, there was a choice to be made, and this year, there's not. It's just a static reward. And so however high you can get is where you want to get the best rewards. I
was just sitting here thinking like, oh yeah, I got to take tradable rewards the early game. I was like, wait a second. There's not 3 options this year. It's just 1.
I do think that the splitting of where people go into divisions, I think it seems like a big thing, but actually you were able to get up so quickly from Division 10 into Division 9 and then into Division 8. It really is going to depend on how much more spaced out the divisions are at those higher division levels. If you've played seriously, there are chances that you're going to be in Division 7 or 8 because you've played quite a lot this year. But I know for me, like the account that I buy the game on is not the one that I tend to play the most on. And so I think I've only got to Division 7 or 6 because I've not really played on that account. So I'm not going to be that high.
That feels like a Josh thing.
It is. but I think, but what I'm saying is I don't think, even if you're starting in Division 10 or Division 9, I actually don't think it's going to be that different. Like, sure, your beginning games may be a little easier because you're up against people who didn't get high last year, but for a full 6 days from the Friday when it's released to the Thursday when rewards are, I don't think you're not going to be able to achieve the division you want to achieve or have the ability and skill to achieve. Like, it's not as if they've split people over 6 divisions or 7 divisions. Like if people were starting in Division 3, there's a massive, massive advantage there. But 3 divisions is, especially at that high level, it's kind of whatever.
Yeah, it's also fair to say, Nate, typically people who are on during early access tend to be quite good players anyway, right? I think people tend to find that it's a little bit trickier playing online during that window anyway.
I would agree with that. It's probably more the people who are pre-ordering are more of the hardcores like us that are playing the game year in, year out, playing a lot of the game and getting pretty decent at the game too. So yeah, like Josh said, I don't think it's going to impact too much in the beginning. I mean, even for matchmaking purposes, like you still could be in Division 7, right? And match somebody who's maybe in 8 if there's not that many people on. So like there still could be a little bit of that too. I don't know how broad the matchmaking will be or if they'll touch on that, if it's changing at all. But yeah.
Yeah, I think this has been, helpful discussion in terms of what to do once you get on the game and, what dates to look out for. But I guess to bring us back to the very start, what would you tend to be recommending, Nate, people do on web app? I guess initially maybe from a more casual perspective, but I guess, you can really commit to it if you want to as well.
Yeah, the web app last year was kind of a change from the years of before because we didn't have one key part that we always had in the past, the welcome back or loyalty packs. We didn't have any of those last year, of course, because we went from the FIFA title to EAFC. And so that kind of changed. I mean, I think all of us thought we were still going to get them because that's what we had known for every year before that. And then we logged on and we were like, here's your starter pack after you pick your nation and have fun, like type of thing is what it felt like. So that changed a lot of the web app last year because you really were left with not much to do. Like you could do the first SBC and that's it. So that's still a variable we're waiting to learn more about, I guess. But that'll, I think, depend a lot on how much we can even do on the web app besides just the starter things when you first click in type of thing.
Yeah. And then would you have any recommendations for those not getting access to the game, so are going to be on web app for like a week.
From what we saw last year, that would be a good bit harder. Like if you're not getting any packs, you're going to have to try to build up your club doing like the foundation SBC, and then try to get some coins through doing those objectives that you can do on a companion app or the web app to get a few coins, or something that you can quick sell to get some coins. Like if they're not going to give us packs to start off, to give us like a quick 5K and some players in our club to start the advanced SBCs, then doing really anything on the web app might be a bit tough. Yeah, that's the thing that really changes the web app this year. I know, obviously when you think the web app, you're like, all right, it's my first time to get on. What nation do I choose? You know, all that sort of thing. And that's great for the web app and for what it is, but just felt like last year, and maybe this will be this year too, you just did all that, you were excited, and then just you felt like you hit a wall because there was like nothing else that you could do.
Yeah. I'd be surprised if the general, like if we dig down into the kind of minutiae a little bit more, I'd be surprised if the general setup of the account changed. I don't think we'll see tradable welcome back packs come back. Potentially they may have seen that last year it was difficult to kind of just play the web app if you wanted to. And so we might see an element of a daily login reward or just something that gives you a little bit of a starter. But I think there was a lot you could do on the web app last year if you did things correctly. And one of the first decisions you make, or in fact, the first decisions you make when you open your account, I think have quite a big impact on how long you'll be able to play the web app. The first thing is your nation selection. And traditionally in the foundation SBCs, there was a specific one that required an English and a German player to, in like CDM and Striker, to get certain links. And now that SBC is gone. So your decision now is essentially based around trying to get the same nation on multiple different leagues. Yeah. And either England or Germany are the best choices for those, because there are so many lower leagues in the English leagues, and Germany has 3 divisions. You also have the Fräulein Bundesliga and obviously the WSL in England. There's quite a few Germans that play in the Swiss leagues and the Austrian league. So you've got some kind of separation there between those two. That I would be picking England or Germany to try and complete those foundation SBCs without having to buy cards, because that's the important thing, because you're not going to have too many coins. But the biggest thing right at the beginning of the game is your kit and badge choices, because you want to pick rare golds for those because they're tradable. And even though no one has coins right at the beginning of the game, so you can't sell them for the 3, 4, 5K that they end up going for, that discard value of rare gold kits and badges for 1,500 coins can really be make or break in terms of your ability to complete like the majority of the foundation SBCs that are there, or even open a couple of bronze packs, and try and sell what you get in those, because people are looking to complete foundation SBCs. So if you get an English, German, French, Brazilian player in those bronze packs, you will be able to sell them, and probably for a little bit of profit on the total cost of the bronze pack. So it's a lot more kind of nitpicky and grindy without those starter packs. But you also even have the objectives that Nate mentioned, like the getting chemistry in your squad starts unlocking. There's quite a few coin unlocks in those foundation objectives. It's never that there's nothing to do, but you can hit a brick wall with it if you don't do it correctly.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice, actually. And I think probably wraps us up in terms of the web app. I mean, James, I guess from a more casual perspective, what do you tend to do on the web app? Just hop on, check out what you get, and then leave it until you actually play the game? I don't know.
No, I mean, I'll mess around with the web app sometimes. Yeah. It depends how spicy I'm feeling, because I feel like if you want to make the most of the web app, you should really have to focus on learning the prices for it could even be like a niche. Like you could learn just, I don't know, Leverkusen players or something like that. And you really have to take the time to learn what they're selling for all the time, so that you can make the most of trading in there. So it's another time commitment. And this is one of those where oftentimes I find that I'd rather just play. And I think for me, as someone who plays a lot of the game and plays at a relatively high level for the most part, the difference in coins that I have from doing web app from the start equates to like maybe a couple gold players. It could be a full team if I have the time to do it, which I know I'm not going to. But like the results for me from a gameplay perspective oftentimes don't equate to the time effort. Like I'm not gonna necessarily win more game if there is a specific, like it's more for me like if there's a specific player that I think might balloon in value that I want to try to get into my team early. I think maybe people won't know about, which like used to be a thing, is not so much a thing anymore with all the like leaks and the availability of information. Like it's a lot harder to do that. Like it used to be that I would find a few like Bundesliga gems or something that I'd race to try to go get and let them like appreciate in value. I just don't see that, feel like that's the case anymore. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's not a compound interest thing at the beginning. Like, it's not a case that if you've got 5,000 sooner than somebody else, you'll get to 50 or 100,000 sooner than somebody else. And I also think once you play a few games, you unlock so many packs from objectives, your team changes massively anyway.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess it happens every year, but it used to be that there'd be like a couple cards that would be like a couple K on the web app. And everybody all of a sudden would be like, wait a second, look at this card. And they would go up to like 10. And so you'd like quickly double your coins there once like the game started to go out. But like, I feel like that still does happen. And like Nate would be the guy to, talk through that thought process there.
Yeah.
But I find for me, oftentimes like I am picking up players early that I want to play with, not purely from a trading perspective. So my efficiency on the web app isn't as high.
I mean, if we do get some tradable rewards, Nate, I mean, it is perfectly possible that we get some tradable rewards because this is the second year of FC, and so there are returning users once again.
Yeah, true.
So there could be returning user rewards. That then should really mean that, the cheapest time technically to buy players is when the web app is out, but the game isn't. If we have that situation this cycle, which hasn't always been the case.
Yeah, that's what always had created that good time to buy in the early access stages was, or especially the web app time, is you had those tradable packs people were opening, and then, we have like no coins. So we want to sell what we pack to go get some coins and then do the advanced SBCs to get more packs, right? So that was kind of how the cards got supplied on the market, and there's no gameplay demand, so nobody's using them. So yeah, you could find that midfielder for 5K, and then 3 or 4 days later, as people get on the game, he's 10 to 15,000. But without those starter packs, then you have cards that are like not supplied almost at all on the market, except for the very few people that are on the physical copy of the game. Like, it just creates a whole big mess in terms of that, what used to be simple and straightforward market appreciation early game period.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't as simple as that. And then, for people who go on in that first week or so, even once the game's actually out, would they expect a rise on, meta players, or, does it not really work out like that over the first week? I guess it's going to depend on the player, but
yeah, there definitely are still some good fluctuations. I think last year what we found was on the Thursday and the Friday, so like the day after and 2 days after the web app came out, the prices kind of dipped a little bit, more so on the actual day that the early access came out, because people got on the game, and for that first few hours, everybody was like opening their 4,600 FC points, getting back on, and there was supply on the market, but then at the same time there was gameplay demand. So like I remember team of the week 1 𝘪𝘁 like was under 100K or something like that, and then over the course of the next 2 or 3 days, she went from like 100,000 coins to like 200 and something K, and went crazy high in value because she got supplied straight away. But then everybody realized, oh, this card's really good, I want to use it. And then she went up. So you still have that appreciation. It just doesn't happen with as many cards as it used to, or sometimes as much. And it's just in a different time frame too. All based around when people can open their packs.
Yeah, and Nate, something you'll be asked all the time at the start of the cycle is whether you should keep or sell a player.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of like simplified advice that people would find useful on that? Because it is obviously going to vary so much player to player. It's quite hard to say.
Yeah.
But is there a sort of way to think about it so people can make their own decisions?
I think the easiest way to look at it is players that are lower rated, like low 80s, and maybe they have good stats for the start of the game, they're probably fine for that first little bit, first couple of weeks, but then after that, they're going to drop off a lot. And players who are higher rated, walkouts, still very meta stats, but like players that you see, oh, this guy goes for 50K right now. Well, he's probably going to go for more than that still in the next week. It just kind of comes down to lower rateds get packed more, higher rateds don't as much. So if they're both usable, the lower rated one's going to end up being phased out of people's teams quicker because of SBCs, evolutions, more cards and packs, and they'll probably drop. So yeah, low rated just get packed more. Don't hold on to those as long. High rated's a little safer.
Yeah.
All right, Nate, you ready? Here's the this to me is like the only thing that I care about personally.
Okay.
When it comes to trading this year. You ready? And these are the answers that I want to have. Historically, because I am not going to ask you to predict the future.
Okay.
What are the major like drum beats for large market swings? Right? So you mentioned like the day of early access, right? That came out and prices swung big time from early access to like what'd you say, like a week later, 2 weeks later? So your buy window is when for that one?
Yeah, so your buy window is kind of like on Friday the 20th, earlier as possible, maybe even like late, depending on if you're USA or where you're at in the world. But because people get on the game at midnight, their time zone. So Friday, just as a general date, like the early release day is when you usually see some prices dipping. And then after that, like I'm looking at 𝘠𝘃𝗏𝗀's graph. She was 116K, this informed 𝘠𝘃𝗏𝗀 in Team League 1 last year. 116K on early release Friday. She went to 227K by Tuesday. Literally 3-4 days later.
That's a swing trade.
Yeah.
Right?
And then she was still above 170,000 coins for the next 4 weeks. But that's an inform too. Gold cards probably wouldn't stay that expensive for that long. But yeah, that early access date is kind of like, if you got a few coins or you've opened your FC points, that's when you're like going to go shopping for a bargain for a player that you want to use and see appreciating value.
Okay. I'm gonna go one beyond that. My like main strategy this year, which maybe not main strategy, but I feel like I missed the massive window last year because I was afraid to put a bunch of my coins into it because I didn't know when it was going to happen. I wish I would have just done it way earlier. When SBCs actually hit, historically, I feel like 84s go from like the junky ones will go from like 1,000 coins to like, I don't know, 5,000 coins or something like that.
Sure.
True, not so true.
Actually, for the fodder type of investments, the higher rated, the better in that first couple of days because there's way less SBCs. Like I'm looking at 88 𝘵𝑰𝐺 last year, or 88 𝘰𝗻𝘂𝗍𝑎𝑑𝑒s was 8K. And then Friday came out and we had that, I think we had KDB SBC a little bit after that. And some of those cards went up to like 10 to 15K after that.
When was that first big SBC?
Oh, Kevin De Bruyne flashback. And then we had like a James Madison Player of the Month. We're really
but how long after the early release Friday was that?
I think it was on early release Friday, the De Bruyne.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
I just always feel like there is an opportunity to get a bunch of fodder cards below SBC fodder value early. And if you're looking for like passive ways to make some coins while you play the game, like to me, that is safe.
Oh yeah.
Like undoubtedly they will go up.
Yep. That's definitely the safe way. It's like 84 and above. When you can buy those in the first 2 weeks of the game, those will probably appreciate in the next month at some point, a pretty large amount. So yeah, that's always a good early game. It's more of like a dividend investment, like longer term, but you'll still get a good return for sure.
Yeah. I just, for the people that are like the when should I buy, when should I sell crew.
Oh yeah.
If you pack an 84 early on or 85 or 86, that's like a not a good one. Like let's say you pack Parejo, right? Like unless you're going to do a bunch of trading, I feel like just let him chill.
Yep.
And sell him, because the only way to make it the value with trading is if you're going to take the coins from him and actually put them to use to actively increase your coin value early on. If you're not going to be able to spend the time or the effort to do that, just chill until it's SBC time.
Yeah, and then accumulate coins through rewards and playing the game that way. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also some of those players are quite effective in game actually early on. Like, some of them have like a lot of play styles. They might not seem that meta, but they actually can be effective, especially potentially with the addition of roles and familiarity. Some of them might have pluses and pluses that really make a difference. So it's probably worth mentioning. Right, I want to get into a couple of other early things that are specific to 𝗵𝘂25 just after this break. Hello, listener, an important announcement. If you're playing 𝗵𝘂25 and thinking, it'd be nice to play Rush with some like-minded teammates, perhaps even some listeners of the podcast, perhaps even some hosts of the podcast, then we've set up in the supporter Discord an area where you can matchmake or find others to play with in Rush. There's voice chats there for you to join. It's very easy to use. If you're a gold or icon supporter and are unsure how to join the Discord because you haven't done so already, it's pretty easy to do that as well. There is a link in the description of all the podcasts released through Patreon, which explains how to do that if you haven't done so already. If you're on the bonus podcast tier, so not gold or icon, it's very easy to upgrade too if you fancy it. And of course, it's helping the podcast more and you're getting loads of perks in return too. And if you're not a supporter at all, then, maybe consider joining on the gold or icon tier and you will, as I said, get access to the Discord, including that Rush matchmaking system and plenty more as well. So if that interests you, then do search Support FUT Weekly in your search engine. A huge thank you if you do consider doing that. It really does help the podcast. For now, though, let's jump back into this episode. Hello, welcome back after the break. Right, one thing I'm not sure a lot of people have necessarily noticed is that with the Ultimate Edition, you do get access to an exclusive evolution. And this has been described as an evolution that will allow you to select an 82 rated or less striker of your choice and give that player the PowerShot Plus playstyle. I do wonder whether there might be a few more restrictions than just that, but it sounds quite appealing because PowerShot is pretty good, especially in the early stages of the game. And if you're starting with squad battles, that's probably a good time to evolve that player. What type of forward, if we're looking at under 82 rated players, are you going to be looking for to put into that evolution? Josh, let's come to you as, the correspondent for evolutions.
So I actually think the answer is very different this year to what it's been in the past. If it was exactly the same as last year, I would say to hold off and wait to see if you can chain it with another evolution, to see if there's a not better option that comes out. An inform, a low-rated inform, all of those kinds of things. Because I think a lot of people rushed into putting the striker that they had into an evolution and then it just sat there not doing anything.
Real quick, I was the one that waited last year and it was so freaking pointless.
It was last year, but this is where I think this year might be different. And because of the new evolution system where you should be able to upgrade pretty much any card in an evolution as long as, it's not too high rated, even if it has too many playstyle pluses, it might just not get given the playstyle plus, because of this new evolution system. I would just say, go for the players you like. If you want meta, go for the meta options. And the list for who's good for it this year is probably going to be quite similar to the list that was good for it last year. Darwin Núñez
starts with Thomas Müller.
Pretty good again.
Thomas Müller's 82 rated.
I would maybe leave Thomas Müller. I'm not sure he'd be exactly the first person on my line. But if you think, for example, that there's going to be lots of pace requirements in evolutions, and that's going to be one of the major factors where they limit who you can put in, somebody like Thomas Müller might be a good choice, because if you can put him into multiple evolutions, yeah, sure, you might not be upgrading his shooting or passing stats, but they're probably going to be decent already, and you can get a much quicker Thomas Müller over time. So I also think this is relevant in terms of trading, because trading for evolutions was massive last year. The massive swings you'd get when an evolution came out. I wonder if it will be slightly less dramatic this year, because it's going to be so much more open for you to put in previously evolved cards. And with that comes the not needing to max out every evolution. If it's max 82 rated, it felt like this year, if I'm not putting an 82 rated card in, it's a bit of a waste. Whereas next year, because of those kind of slight loosening, and it may take a month or so for people to realize this, and depending on how the evolutions are released. But it might be you might just go, oh well, there is this 74-8 striker that I'd love, that plays for my favorite club. He's my favorite player. I'd love to be able to get him up. Let me put him into this one because just because he's got Playstyle Plus doesn't mean he's not going to be able to go into another evolution. So I actually think that you can go meta. You can try and get the best card that fits into an evolution. But as we said multiple times this year, I don't think that is the way to have the most fun with Evos. And, especially now that we can go into Rush, if you've got a card that you love, bringing that into Rush, it might be the only person that has that version of it taken through certain evolutions. That's also going to be a fun aspect to it. So, yeah, whereas last year, especially early in the game, it was like, go for the best card, go for the card that's going to be the most meta. It's probably going to be your best striker for at least the first week or two. I actually feel like this year I wouldn't be quite as quick to just try and get the best player and put in the best player. I would much sooner go down the evolution route you want to do over the year. And if that is the most meta, then go for it. But if it's a specific team, then don't worry about maxing rating out and all of that kind of stuff, because it's not going to be as much of an issue this year with the new evolution system.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, I think maybe even chemistry could be a decent factor in your choice there, because, if there's a player that is going to help chemistry on other players, considering chemistry is actually important in the early stages of the game, that might be something that leads you down a certain route to a certain player. And with the fact that we have these, capped upgrades, so as you say, there's more options, it's probably not going to matter as much or quite as much, provided we get, good follow-on evolutions, which player you pick, and it's going to be more about the things that you can't change on the card in terms of stats and playstyles, etc. So that would be, their team, their league, their nation, etc. So something to look out for. And potentially, of course, always, player position versatility could also be important in terms of roles, but also in terms of what future evolutions they can actually enter, because they tend to be position restricted. So worth looking out for that. And then the other thing I was going to mention here is, last cycle, we knew from the pre-order information that during early access, there would be an exclusive Nike campaign or promo. Nate, as far as we know, we haven't actually seen anything around that. I mean, I don't think Nike Mad Ready was especially popular anyway, so maybe they just decided we'll leave that and start the promos a little bit later.
Yeah, we haven't seen anything confirming some sort of like early access promo like that Nike Mad Ready was last year. So the only thing they've talked about is those who get the pre-order hero, those like origin heroes. That might be kind of the only thing with new cards, promo card type of feel in that first week.
Nice. Well, before we move on, and we're going to do another episode, so if anyone has any questions about starting 𝗵𝐶25, then do get them in. On that episode, we'll also talk in depth about whether you should use FC points, when you should use your pre-order FC points, and all those sorts of things. I just thought we'd get a bit of a preview and maybe just whip round and say what we're planning to do with the pre-order points. I think I'm putting people on the spot here a little bit. But Nate, as someone who goes down the trading route, what is your plan for those FC points? I know you don't tend to spend on additional FC points, so that's kind of all you'll have. Mm-hmm. What's the plan with those?
Yeah, so for me, it's going to be rip those as soon as I get on the full version of the game, because that's when we get them, I believe. And just because that gets me coins into my account as quick as possible. And then I can go and do the SBCs or start the trading that I want to trade, because that's what really interests me the most and helps me get off the ground. But, like I was saying earlier, when Japes was asking the questions about like the market stuff, I would be opening my FC points when technically some cards are the lowest, but also some would be a bit higher, like your lower rated starter squad players that are 78 to 82 rated that are going to get packed a lot more. They'll be more expensive right away. So I think it's better to open packs then, but your players that are higher rated that are going to appreciate in value as people get coins and can afford them will be a little cheaper then still. So it's a little bit of a trade-off, but I just open straight away to get coins in the club so that I can go and use them.
Yeah, as someone who really wants those coins, I think that is definitely a really good move if you're planning to trade. But I guess, Josh, there's maybe different answers to this question, and it's sort of different for everyone, which is why we can discuss it in a bit more depth. But for you, is it a bit different? Will you not be spending all those points to open packs at the start?
I mean, for me, it probably is different. I think it's going to be different for a lot of people depending on the position they're in. I think we probably on the next podcast will do it a little bit more justice and go through each of the different options depending on how you usually play the game, because I think it differs quite drastically.
Yeah, totally. And then, Japes, what about you? Do you have something in mind? At least one thing you're definitely going to do with the points, or still unsure?
I mean, I'll probably use them for evolutions.
Okay, just save some.
I'm kidding. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that.
I think it's a good idea, honestly.
I mean, I genuinely have thought about it, but realistically, there's too much uncertainty risk around the frequency of evolutions. So if I felt like there was going to be a nice cadence of big evolutions, and I didn't want to put 100K against it to start, but I could put like 100 points against it, 200 points, like. I don't know. That doesn't feel like potentially I'm trying to weigh that up in my head.
Yeah.
Like it feels crazy to use points for evolutions, but I look at it and I'm like,
yeah.
Do you think, let's play a game. Do you think you could spend 4,600 points purely on packs? Like for someone like me who's maybe not going to trade so much, I'm like, do I think I'm going to spend 4,600 points on packs and get to a bunch of players that I'm like really excited about? Maybe. Do I think that'll happen? Do I think I could get a good team and be competitive though? 100%. Like I do believe that. The flip side of that is if I used some of the points for my evolutions, would I guarantee to fill holes in my squad with types of players that I know that I'm going to need? Like maybe, especially with the new like IQ system. I don't know. I'm considering it. I said it like sort of a little tongue in cheek to begin with because like it was a crazy strategy last year, but I'm like kind of considering it if they do it that way off the start because coins can be so precious.
Yeah. You've raised a lot of questions, which we will discuss on that podcast. It will be a supporter episode, so if you'd like to become a supporter, keep the pod going and get an extra episode every single week, then you can do so. Just search Support for Weekly. So just to wrap up this podcast, thought it'd be fun to just whip round and we can each give an icon, a new icon, I should say, that we're excited to see in FC25. We've had official stats and official playstyle pluses as well, actually, for these 8 new icons. And why don't we start with you, James? Because there is one that I'm thinking of. I know she's someone that you watched, right? Back in the day.
I've met.
You met even.
Yeah, a bunch of times. Yeah, I did when I was working in the wonderful world of marketing, I did a project with her and she was one of the core group there. So she's really like pretty awesome.
Oh, nice.
So I think it would be fun. Like obviously we're talking about 𝗠𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 here. I think she's like a really versatile player from her career. So I'm really hoping they give her the old press proven, which for women's players in the midfield, I think would be fun to have. But she's got some great base stats, and I'll definitely be giving her a run. I think, the question for me is going to be, well, she's super versatile. So I love versatile players early on. The USA chemistry boost, historically, not what you're going after from the start, but maybe opens up like getting a Trinity Rodman or a Mallory Swanson or some of the other, US women in that could be, wreak havoc on a wing for a starter squad. So definitely one I'll be keeping an eye on.
Yeah.
It's weird. I feel like we saw it last year with new women's icons. I feel like they were way underpriced to start with.
Mm-hmm.
And then they kind of ballooned. I don't know if that's going to be the case this year, but I'm definitely, like Mia Hamm wasn't that way. 𝗠𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 is not star level of Mia Hamm though. Mm. So I'm hoping with the way that those stats look, maybe she'll be kind of cheap to begin with. In which case, then I might consider opening my points for packs to try to get up to an icon. I think that's going to be like one of the considerations for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, she has the Relentless Plus, Playstyle Plus, and I guess, there's a chance she has the Press Proven as a regular playstyle too. Let's move on to you, Josh. Who in here would you like to pick out?
Well, kind of along the same line as Japes. It was a card I was hoping was going to go slightly under the radar until EA tweeted one of the best promo videos for a card I've ever seen, and it's 𝘰𝗍𝗀𝗀𝘀.
Yep.
the like L8 button on the controller, and just, I mean, they made it seem like she's going to be the best striker in the entire game. But I mean, look at those stats: 91 pace, 89 shooting, 89 dribbling, with 82 passing, 82 physical, finesse shot plus. I mean, that is just going to be an outrageous card at the beginning of the game. And, you know, again, Sweden probably not ideal for chemistry, but I'm not really too fussed. Like, I'll take the league boost and just have an absolute monster up front. So I think she's got to be, you know, as much as I'm excited for 𝗏𝗀 and 𝘬𝘃, this is a card that just looks unreal to me.
Yeah, she's 5'10" as well, 5'10", so not the shortest striker either, which is, you know, nice for a women's player. What about you, Nate? Any particular standouts so far?
Josh stole mine, I'll be honest.
Okay.
I was looking at 𝘮𝘀 as well. And I feel like I'm looking from, like, at these icons, obviously knowing the top dogs, and then seeing her card was kind of like a surprise. And the video that they posted about her too, agree. That was a crazy video. But I'm going to have to go with Gareth Bale as a Spurs fan. I like his versatility atop the attack. He can play striker, right wing, and left wing, I believe. And yeah, his stats are disgustingly good. 95 pace. I think his balance will probably be the stat that might let him down a bit, though, because his cards in older FIFAs had a little bit lower balance, but still, like, getting behind striker with the pace and the shooting, he's going to be insane and probably the most expensive out of all the new icons, but yeah, he's going to be awesome.
Rapid plus, 95 pace, 89 shooting, 84 passing, 89 dribbling, 65 defending, which is actually decent, 79 physical as well. Like, yeah, it's a really good card, especially as you probably don't need to boost the pace if you don't want to. No. So yeah, pretty nice.
I'm just going to say it as well. Horrifically underrated. 88's an absolute travesty. But anyway.
Wait, we're saying you think an 88 rating is unfair for Gareth Bale?
100%.
Dude, stop.
I don't know whether I agree with it. Yeah.
Gareth Bale's a better player than Didier Drogba. He just was.
But overall, such a bad indicator of like how they've rated a player, because I mean his stats don't reflect an 88 particularly. But
we know that they can change the overall rating. Anyway, you know, this is a debate for another time.
I mean, look, we've got like Vieira at 88, we've got Rio at 88, we've got Laurent Blanc at 88. Like I don't.
Well, Rio's actually low.
Did any of them score an overhead kick in the Champions League final?
No, I don't think so. Gosh, so he scored a goal. Very cool.
Against Liverpool. Come on, that's the important part here.
Franck Ribéry is an 88 rated. Are you going to tell me that Gareth Bale is like a higher? I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
I am.
It's an irrelevant conversation, isn't it? Anyway, it's all about the stats, not the actual overall. Overall's just a bit arbitrary. Anyway, we should maybe do a quick wrap up of the other icons. We've got Buffon, who, of course, most people know, and has a interesting new playstyle plus that they've added this cycle. As you probably have picked up, there are new playstyle pluses, or playstyles, I guess, for goalkeepers. He has far reach, which will be nice on top of his decent wingspan, maybe for taking down some of those OP finesse shots. And actually, 𝘍𝑠, who is a women's icon goalkeeper, German, also has the far reach playstyle plus. She is just 5'9", though, so that's probably going to be pretty much necessary to make her usable, even though her stats are very, very strong. We've also got Aya Mayama, who is a Japanese left mid women's player. We have Lilian Thuram, who has a right back position by default with slide tackle plus, but his stats very much more suited to a centre back. So hopefully that is one of his alternate positions. 88 pace, 58 shooting, 76 passing, 75 dribbling, 90 defense, 90 physical. So yeah, definitely more of a centre back. We've got Marinette Pichon, a French women's player. All right looking striker, 88 rated, 85 pace, 89 shooting, 80 passing, 88 dribbling, 75 physical, and acrobatic playstyle plus. So yeah, not as good as 𝘱𝗀 for sure. And yeah, I think that does wrap it up. So there we go. I think we're ready to wrap up this episode. Thank you very much to all our guests here for coming along. It's been great to have you, Nate, once again. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Ben. It's always great to talk about the new game and what's upcoming and excitement with that. I'm just ready for it to be here.
Yeah, it really does crawl by until we get into the cycle proper. So yeah, thank you very much as well to Josh. Good to have you on.
Yeah, it was great. I echo Nate's thoughts. Just get me on the game.
Indeed. And to Japes as well. Thank you very much for joining us as always.
It's been real.
It has. And that does wrap us up. So thank you very much to all you listeners tuning in. A reminder that you can catch the FUT Weekly podcast on all the different podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from, and also on YouTube. If you're listening on YouTube, then do drop a like and leave a comment. It definitely does help us out. A big thank you to all you supporters out there as well, supporting the podcast, including those icon patrons. Dave B, Hugh J, Darren W, Alistair M, Don P, Rob P, Jeff B, Damon H, Tom B, Adam G, Neil P, Alex M, Jake S, Dan W, Roger D, Lee A, Andrew C, Nishant, Waterman, Dylan H, Adam R, Rob L, Brendan W, Michael K, David G, Jimmy K, Cherry Drank, John D, Michael B, Aditya S, and Joshua K. Plus a special thanks to Luke M, Dave B, Hugh J, Tom M, Darren W, and Pato Foot for advice and production assistance. Before I leave you, just one more thing to add though. Ultimate Team is a bit like life really. It has its many ups and downs. If you're having a few more downs than ups in real life in these more difficult times, then please don't feel that you're alone or need to struggle on without taking action. If you go to thecalmzone.net, there's loads of resources, advice, support, or even just a friendly chat for anyone who needs it. If it sounds like it could help you, then head over to thecalmzone.net. And for now, have a good one, and I'll catch you on the next podcast.